Hey guys! So today you and I are going to talk about simple solutions. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, hi Frederick, have you ever been in a team that has worked several months on a problem only to later discover that there's a simple solution which only takes a few days to implement? Yep, I have. And this is gonna sound so pompous, but I'm gonna go for it anyway. The times I've seen this happen is quite a few times, but it's never happened in my team. And the times that it has happened, I'll give you I'll give you two scenarios where it happened. The times that has happened, basically when they asked me to take a look at it, we came to a conclusion that something could be solved much faster. So that is actually, well, it's basically my job at this point. So to give you a bit of a background on this, one of the things that you may or may not know about me is that during the course of my career as a software developer, I have been aiming to be what I call the true full stack developer. And the true full stack developer, in my terms, would mean an individual who has a full range of knowledge of all the things that are happening. In this case, it's web, but it doesn't have to be web. Like I dabble in other things as well, apart from that. And so my goal has always been to learn all the things about everything. And so that has taken a long time, and I've worked, I feel, fairly hard to try to get to something adjacent to it. And because I've done that, it's often the case that I have a slightly different perspective on the things that I do with my coworkers. And so because I've experimented with so many various things and so forth, you kind of start seeing, various ways of doing the same thing, and you see it from a more holistic perspective than other people in some cases. And so when this has happened for me, I think one of the first ones I remember was when I had a group of people who were going to do a data transfer from, basically they got a data dump, and the idea was that they were going to use that data to seed a test environment. And the idea being that, well, we're going to clean up all this data because it's in the wrong format, and then we're going to push it into our systems and so forth and so forth. And they started. It took a really long time, and some questions were raised, and they asked, like, Frederick, could you maybe take a look at this? And I said, yeah, sure. And so what I found was that what the people who were doing this had done was that we're talking now about, let's say that you have a data dump. I think the total number was like 8 million records or something like that, like a massive amount of data. And so what they had done was that they were trying to create a system, like basically they were pushing the data through a REST API in order to get it into the system, right? And so they were rewriting the system so that it could handle all of the various cases that this data was in, because it was not in the right format that they needed. And as you can imagine, 8 million records, it was not as bad as I first thought. They had started on that path, which was, hey, let's go through and manually fix everything, which they gave up on, luckily. But the thing that I said to them, because when they said, like, we estimate this thing to take another 2 or 3 or 4 weeks or whatever they were saying, and I said to them, no, I think it's going to take it between 1 to 3 days. And so my product owner just, like, sort of, my coworkers as well, like, they were, how could you possibly claim that that is going to be possible? And I said, well, the thing that they're estimating is that they're trying to build a system to get a data structure that isn't compliant with the data structure of the models that they have created into the right shape. And I say, let's not do that. Let's run a batch job and format the data, or in this case, it doesn't have to be like a big thing like a system or anything. I mean, I can do that on my local computer. And so they really, and I'm sorry, sometimes this happens, like it seems of course clear to myself how I'm going to solve this and so forth, and it wasn't clear to them. So I say the thing that I usually say these times, and that is, can you please let me try? And trust me, it's not that long ago where I get to a point where like they won't even let me try, and then I just give up. I usually got really angry back in the day when this happened, but I said, can you give me the benefit of that you're doubting, benefit of doubt here, and just doubt that I can do it. Can I please get a day or two to try and do this? And so they said okay, and I think I took one day and like a few hours to write basically a JavaScript file that read like all the lines in this data dump, and just looked at all the permutations of how different things were working, and then it just spat out, like it basically just mapped all the values and excluded things that weren't necessary, and special characters and all this complexity as you can imagine. And I got a file out on the other side that was in a JSON format, which was perfectly formatted for uploads and things like that. And then they said to me, oh, that was pretty cool, or like my product owner really thought that, yeah, that was nice, it worked, and so forth and so forth. And my engineering coworker said, yeah, but like how is like you're skipping all the business logic and stuff like that. And I go, yeah, but this is not necessary at this stage, because it's just a data dump, it's just raw data, and you're trying to force it through the whole system. You can just skip the system and get directly into the database, because you already know what format the data should be in, so you don't have to do all these other things. And then they finally say, okay, yeah, but now we need to upload it. And I go, yeah, that's going to take just a few seconds or a few minutes. And then they go, no, that's going to take a long time, because we have to, again, like we have to run it into production and stuff like that. I go, no, you can just inject it right into the database, because you already have the format. It's already in the right state. And those are the sort of circumstances where I argue, which makes it tricky. I have that situation at work now, actually, where I've been asked, as I said, this is basically my job now, because for some reason I've reached a point where a lot of companies or managers and so forth, they feel like they can talk to me, and I suspect that they feel a certain level of comfort in my seniority and my way of thinking. So what they usually do is that they perceive me as someone who can help out some teams or people who may not have a good idea, or like where they have lower trust. And so they send me in and they ask me, can you look at this problem and see if you can solve it? And that's what I always tell people. I never treat software developers, and it's not just for me, it's for any software developer. Never ever treat a software developer as a unit of a person. In other words, that if Bob can't fix it, then it cannot be done. It might be that Jane can fix it, because it's a talent industry. Some people are really good at some problems, or so forth, and some are not so good. So it's really important that you start figuring out who could be the person who can solve this, because it's like a little science in of itself. Some scientists come up with amazing new ideas, or inventors or so forth, and some don't. And that has to do, at the end of the day, with, well, there's a few factors, but what I usually argue is that when my managers come, and this has happened now, and say, oh, everything is not going bad, it's like really slow, we have tons of bugs, we have issues, and I go, and they say, hey, can you fix it? And I say, yes, I can, but not under these circumstances. And then they of course ask why. Well, because you want me to change and like you come with suggestions on how to approach problems, and I have to convince the engineers that I'm working with to let me do it. And that's the thing that they're not allowing me to do, because in their minds what I'm suggesting is not good, or so forth and so forth. Like, they don't care about the fact that they don't have any solutions themselves, or that they can't fulfill the criteria. But I cannot force people to see something that they do not see. I might see it, I might be wrong, or so forth, and that's what I was saying earlier. That's why I try to approach things as, can you let me try? I always try to figure out, can I do something small to prove to you that I can do this thing before I do the big investment? But if I can't even get that, then it's pointless. And as I said, it does not matter how many engineers you put on this. And I will stand in front of anybody and say this. If you add more engineers to a problem, you will perhaps get more work out of the door, but the tasks will not go faster, because it is apart from the state of the code, it is the talent of the software engineer that determines whether or not a problem is easy to fix, or if it's really, really hard, and how fast it gets solved. That's what I argue. So what I want you to take away from this is that yes, I have absolutely been in situations like this, and it really, as I said, comes down to the talent, I argue, of the software developer. If it's a pretty straightforward problem, most people will have the same idea, because it's not like, well, some cases it is. Like we have these people like Linus Torvalds, for example, is my favorite to take as an example, who is like an enormous genius. And yeah, if you ask him to solve a certain problem, he has solved some problems that, not him exclusively, of course, that most people would never even think of. He's a real genius, and those people are, maybe not always at that scale, but you have them in other companies as well, where you might have a less gigantic problem, but they come up with a really, really great idea. And sometimes for one group it will take weeks to do something, and I've seen it firsthand. I have seen teams that are so poor at what they do that for them it's a whole team to solve a problem that I know this other guy or this girl, I just ask that person, and then it's like gone, like the whole problem just disappears, because their talent level is vastly different, and their way of thinking about problems is vastly different. I have been fortunate enough to be in a few of these sorts of situations, and trust me, it was hard going. It's not fun to be the person, and I'm always often this person. I'm not always right about what I say and what I suggest, but it's tough because it's so much easier to just go, I'm just going to do what everybody else is saying. But if you are one of those people who might have a different perspective, as long as you can get them to allow you to prove yourself, because that keeps you honest as well, so you don't just think that you know everything, but try to prove it, and you start getting some records of, yeah, I actually could fix this in a fraction of the time, or like not as it wasn't as big of a problem for me as it was for other people. If you're lucky, they're going to love you for it. If you're unlucky, they're going to resent you. I've been on both sides here, and the best thing that you can do in that situation is build up credibility with the people who allows you to do these things, like your managers and bosses and stakeholders and so forth, because when push comes to shove, some developers, even if you have a better idea, they won't listen to you, because it's not an idea that they can get behind, and they are more concerned with that they feel what's going on, like their ideas are heard, or like their way of doing things is more important than the results. And when you're in that state, I used to get angry and frustrated. These days I get still a little bit angry and frustrated when it happens, but now I kind of just wash my hands, and I say to my managers, who I've been building up a relationship with, I'm sorry, I do believe that I can solve this problem, but they won't let me, so I can't do much. Have a great day.